As we continue our investigation into the 1950s, what we're going to see here is a change in the way Americans are living, where they're living, how they're living, what they're doing once they're there, what their lives are like, what their jobs are like, what their education is like, what their families are like. And at its root, what we're going to be seeing here is this question of how does prosperity change the way people live, and in particular, we're going to see something called the growth of suburbia. We're going to be looking at Americans getting more income, spending more due to advertising, having cheaper housing, and what this all gets mushed into is something called a better life. There's a name for this that we begin to kind of quantify. It's a name that people still use today when discussing these kinds of issues, and it's the American dream. This idea that the average middle class person can go to college, own a house, get a decent job, have a better life than the person that goes before them. And this American dream starts for the first time when we see homes mass-produced during the 1950s to 1960. We're going to see places like Levittown, New York, Levittown, Philadelphia, Levittown, Long Island. Puerto Rico has a Levittown. And what this is are homes like this one right here, all that you can see, one home after the other, mass-produced, erected in these neighborhoods. And what this means, of course, is that if you mass produce a house, then you know what happens, right? Costs go down. When costs go down, price can go down. This means that homes won't be as expensive. So during the 1950s, we'll see suburban population double, while urban population, city population, increases by just 10%. And if you need a reminder of what that looks like, here's a quick map for you to understand. We'll see these urban areas in the center of these metropolitan regions, cities, if you want. Then we're going to see the growth of suburbia, and it grows much more than cities do. You can see suburbs growing dramatically more than cities do. The suburbs grow. And then outside that, you have these rural areas that still exist, the country, if you want to call it that. And this is going to take place all over America. We're going to see people embrace this idea of suburbanization. So the question is why? Was it just because housing prices went down? And that's not the only reason why. Between 1900 and 1950, we saw a ginormous increase in the number of people living in our cities, and the cities weren't able to keep up. Whether that's because of a high birth rate or immigration, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is our cities are crowded. There's crime, there's congestion, and as the price of homes come down, we're going to see people really kind of want to move into suburbia after World War II ends. This is going to be a good thing, especially when we compare it to something called the GI Bill. And the GI Bill is really, really, really important. The GI Bill says if you served in World War II or Korea, then you are going to get money. Money that you can spend on your first home, get a job, go to college. These things with the GI Bill dramatically change the way Americans kind of experience their life. It provides a tremendous boost to our World War II, post-World War II economy. And if you want an example of what that looks like, take a look at this chart, which is just enrollment in college. When we see the GI Bill go into play, then we see all of a sudden, starting here, right here at the end of World War II, a dramatic rise in the number of men who attend college. This means these people will be better educated, and if you're better educated, you get a better chance to make more money as an adult with a more prestigious job, buy a house, and so on and so forth. And it's thanks to the GI Bill that we see this dramatic increase in the latter part of the 1940s in higher education. So we have a whole bunch of people moving into suburbia, changing the way our country looks in terms of who and how people are living. We also will see some significant changes to the economy in the 1950s. One of those is going to be a dramatic increase in income and the goods that we have to buy it. High income, abundant goods. As an example, the average income of Americans during this point in time will increase dramatically. For some people, that income will even triple. But overall, if we took whites, we took blacks, Native Americans, we took Hispanics, and we put them all into one big pot and we said, what happens to your income in the 1960s? Their average income as a family goes from beneath $25,000 all the way up to almost $35,000. That's a dramatic increase in just 10 years, and it really shows how the GI Bill really kind of helps our economy continue to go as people buy more things with their increased income that comes from their higher education and from assistance with the GI Bill. The other question then is, what's going to be our fastest growing industry? And this is important to understand because as people are seeing more and more and more being made in terms of goods that we can buy, consumer demand needs to keep up with this production. Well, one of the ways we can do that was our fastest growing industry in the 1950s, advertising. These new marketing techniques encourage people to buy, but I don't want you to think that it's advertising like we have now. The advertising of the 50s reflects society of the 1950s. Here's what I mean. Two particular ads, incredibly, in this case, sexist in nature. Here's one from the late 1940s. The soldiers need our help. Gather round, American women. Turns out you gals are useful after all. How sexist can you get, right? Or this one right over here. Don't worry, darling. You didn't burn the beer, because there's the housewife all sad and lonely because she burnt her husband's dinner. Or this one right here. If your husband ever finds out you're not store testing for fresher coffee, you can see what'll happen to you, right? Let's just glorify domestic abuse. And at the same time we see sexist ads, we'll also see incredibly racist ads, like this one for cream of wheat from the 1950s. Maybe cream of wheat ain't got no vitamins. I don't know what them things is. If they's bugs, they ain't none in cream of wheat. But she's so show good to eat and cheap. Costs about 1 cent for a great big dish. I mean, that's as racist as you can get, except for maybe this, where you add in the fried chicken as well to the ad for General Electric. Your next range should be General Electric. And there are so many other examples of this kind of prejudice in advertising from the 50s because it reflects American society at the time.